Hey there guys, this is Obsidian Chill. Got another video for today. And I did intend to bring you in a video doing the in-depth review of the new changes to Eye of the Gemini going forward. Those are on test server, but I cannot do that now because those aren't happening. Update. Eye of the Gemini changes are still not quite finalized and will not go live with episode 45. We now expect them to go live with our next game update after the episode, but that could also still change. So before we touch on that, let's bring you what the actual changes were. So Eye of the Gemini changes the damage restructured from, so basically this is talking about Pollock's gaze or the DPS or the red circles. Instead of it being a flat 20% no matter what supercharge you used, if you used a 2500, it would only be 8% damage. If you used a 5000, it would only be 16%. And if you used a 10k, it'd be 30%. So those changes are basically like a sliding damage scale. I mean, that's okay. I mean, that's not really a huge deal at all. That's just an attempt at balance because the underlying issue has always been, at least with the DPS circles, is that ally and pet damage counts towards them, which didn't in 2018 or when Eye of the Gemini came out, or even before the artifact, the ally and pet tier system. It didn't matter because the amount of damage we could do in 6 seconds wasn't really that substantial. I mean, it was just basically your supercharged damage and like a half a rotation. But now all allies do their damage within like 6 seconds. You have pets that will do a substantial amount of damage within the first 6 seconds. So all that damage counts towards the stacking circles. So you got like 5-6 DPS or even 8 players using their allies, 8 players using their pet summons. All count towards those DPS overlapping circles. So that's where the issue lied. So the sliding damage scale, yes, that has an effect, but the underlying issue that had to be addressed was that the pet and ally damage counting. I don't care, it could stay at 20%. I never had a problem with that. It was just that you just remove the pets and ally damage so that it's only player damage, then that's fine. The healing generation restructured from 3%. This is just like the green heals from Caster's Watch. It was 1.5 if you used a 15, 2% at a 5k, and 5% at a 10k. Once again, no one was using, like, EOG healing was just like a bonus effect. If anything, it helped pets because the EOG heals would heal NPC pets as well. But it's not like you were surviving or you would save yourself from death if you had EOG heals. That wasn't a thing. Some healers may want to claim that, but no, that wasn't a thing. That was just bonus extra heals. Supercharge regeneration, this was the main aspect. So instead of 2% per second, it was going to be changed to 0.5% if you used a 2500, 1% at a 5k, and 3% at a 10k. Now, you may have seen other videos released. I was going to release a video covering the differences. So think of it, if you are the typical healer meta, which is using 3 2500s, if you did like a purple healing ray, scrap, EOG, and like the head mod, you could use about 20 supercharges before you ran out. So that's just basically standing still, not doing any regen yourself, just letting the artifact regen. You could use 20 2500s in a row. And then after these changes, it was 7. So it went from 20 to 7 with the exact same setup. So it's a huge difference, but the concept still remained. You still got group supercharge regen. It was just reduced. So obviously you weren't going to have like rages using berserk off cooldown. You weren't going to have electrics using circuit breaker off cooldown. You weren't going to have gadgets DPS using supercharges off stealth cooldowns. And then the other main point was the effect stacking removal. So this was another big one. So currently players overlap these effects, each gaining massive bonuses. Players will no longer be able to activate a field of the same type when near another field. So that means that if you were if there's 2 healers in the group, you couldn't stack the Caster's Watch or the green circles. If a healer used a green circle, the other healer, if he tried to activate it, it wouldn't work. Same with the DPS. So the DPS wouldn't be able to use their red circles because it wouldn't work for the second DPS. So it came down to whoever used it first. So once again, yes, that's a huge impact. It's more so on the DPS side, but at the same time, you could spread it out. Like a DPS, once you see the red circle disappear, you go. Same with the healer. So there was ways around that. Plus, it was buggy on test server anyway that you could still overlap it. Do I agree with these changes? No. I would not have done this. So this is just way too intricate, too many multi-levels. All I would have done is remove the group supercharge from Caster's Watch. So if tanks and healers can't regen for the group, just for themselves, it fixes pretty much everything. And if the developers finally figure out and get the tech involved to remove the pet damage and ally damage, like I don't care about the DPS stacking circles. I care about like 8 players using allies and pets counting towards that damage. That's ridiculous. That's where the numbers go crazy. But the main aspect was the group supercharge regen. So a little history lesson. If we go back to 2018 when EOG released during the Atlantis episode, right away it was completely broken. The healers were using group shields off cooldown, so every 25 seconds we had a group shield. There's like elite content was pointless because you wouldn't take any damage. You would just be shield after shield after shield. So what did they do? They didn't fix EOG. They started to fix the healer supercharges, so they increased them from 5k to 10k. So if you're wondering why, group transducer is a 10k, that was because I had the Gemini. Then during this was like probably Birds of Prey, we had the nature issue. So basically, then it switched to like nature healers using bug form to proc Eye of the Gemini. So basically, like every 6 seconds, you just go out of bug, go into bug, out of bug. You prop EOG. You had wolf healers using EOG in wolf form. And then switching basically, so you'd be a nature healer, pop wolf, then you'd have basically DPS stats, but every time you pop wolf as a healer, you get the EOG regen. So that was ridiculous. You had same thing, you had wolf using Eye the Gemini for the DPS circle aspect in hallways. So it just, instead of fixing nature properly, or instead of fixing EOG properly, they just fixed nature. They made them like a 30 second, they made them 5Ks. Completely changed nature damage altogether because of Eye the Gemini. So this is basically strike 3. And there's very, very strong language that I want to use on the forums about these people posting on the forums. Like just the incessant crying and whining and complaining. Like, oh my God, like there's just like, how big are the threads here? Like, what was it? EOG Changes, somewhere like that. Where'd it go? Maybe MEPS removed it. I don't know, but it had like thousands of posts. This is on the second page. He might have actually removed it just so there wasn't any more complaining because the changes weren't being released. So MEPS might have nuked that thread. But the incessant whining and complaining, the entitlements, like, oh, you're not allowed to change Eye of the Gemini because I paid for it. Who the fuck do you think you are that they can't change an artifact just because you paid to level it? What games have you been playing in the past? So if something comes out that's completely busted and broken, completely destroys balance in the game, they are never allowed to change it because you paid to level it? Get the fuck out of here. That is absolutely a ridiculous sentiment to have. Eye of the Gemini has been a problem for years. There's, like I said, there's easy ways to fix it. If the group regen is removed, a healer could still use Eye of the Gemini to regen their own supercharge and to use their own. A tanks could still regen their own supercharge because the issue changed in their generation. Tanks can no longer use the 2500s, like the utility shields. You could be able to get like 3 or 4 of them and you're out of supercharge. You can't, because you're not going to be able to regen yourself enough. So that is a big blow to tanks because tank supercharges suck. Outside of like mass density, there's nothing. It fires Internal Flame was severely nerfed. Reignition is a stupid supercharge. You have like Envelop, which are like the ice encasement that doesn't do anything. So tank supercharges, they need the movement supercharges because of those shields and dash attack and perfect poise. So making changes to that was an issue. But if a tank and healer can regen their own supercharges, DPS can overlap their own circles, that's fine. That fixes it because then DPS have to regen their supercharge naturally. So then either they're using Scrap the Soul Cloak, they're switching to supercharge generator builds, they're switching to like Black Adam allies. There's different aspects they can to regen that. But the issue has always been Caster's Watch. And now we're not even getting these changes. Now these changes are going to be completely pushed back. Who knows they're going to happen? They may not even happen at all. They completely caved to all the people crying on the forums, like just complete crying for the past week. They've completely caved to that feedback. They're pushing back the changes. Who knows when the next game update is going to be, and that could also still change. So we actually had, even if this update to Eye of the Gemini wasn't ideal, at least it fixed it enough that it wasn't going to be just completely toxic in the game. So now nothing changes in the game. No meta changes. It's always still going to be Scrap the Soul Cloak, Gemini, and like Purple Healing Ray for healers. You're still going to have massive green spam in the raids, you know, making damage checks pointless and everything else. So it's just, we had some sort of actual change happening, or a change that was going to happen, being completely reversed by the crying community. You know, it's just ridiculous. Like, there's, I mean, I don't even know what to say anymore. I really don't. I mean, you guys have known my stance on the Gemini, and you may think I'm complaining, but at the same time, no one in this entire game can literally say with a straight face that there's nothing wrong with the Gemini. You know, and Eye of the Gemini doesn't have to be nerfed to the ground. That's not what I'm saying. I don't even want Eye of the Gemini nerfed to the ground, because if they did nerf Eye of the Gemini to the ground, then people actually have something to complain about. If you remove the group supercharge aspect of it, Eye of the Gemini still works perfectly fine. The DPS can still overlap circles. The tanks and healers can overlap, doesn't have to worry about overlapping circles because it's their own personal regen. They still get the DPS and support role, still get the 5% stats. You still get the power regen. You still get the healing. So, I mean, well, the healing they'd have to decide about, because the healing was based on the group healing. So that, I mean, that, like I said before, that minor issues might have to be worked out. But ultimately, Eye of the Gemini still stays as useful without being completely broken and toxic if you're moving that group supercharge. And it's super easy. I mean, if they try to do like these multi-level changes where they change 15 things about an artifact, it's just not going to work out. It's going to be buggy. It's not going to work. People are going to find loopholes and exploits around it. You know, just keep, like, what that expression where, like, KSS, like, keep it stupid simple, or keep it simple, stupid, whatever. You guys have heard that phrase before, but we need like super easy, completely, you know, changes that can be made to the artifacts that can have the greatest impact with the least amount of change. And that's what that group supercharge removal would have. So like I said, I don't really know what else to say. The Gemini changes aren't coming a part of this episode. Who knows if they're going to come in the future? Because at the same time, if they bring this up and change it in the future, then more threads daily and YouTube videos are going to come out saying, like, you know, I demand my money back. You owe me $200 because I leveled Eye of the Gemini 4 years ago, and now you're changing it. Like, ridiculous. So take it or leave it. We'll see you in the next video. Take care, guys.